you're unmistakably already in the world of research coming out of the Beckman program.
I'm Emily Scheib. I was awarded the Beckman Scholars Program in 2022. I'm currently a junior at Ohio State.
My name's Liam Shanahan. I'm a third-year biochemistry student at Ohio State.
So hi, I'm Emily Wong. I am currently a postdoctoral scholar at UCSF. I'm working with Dr. Geetha Narlikar, and I'm working on a heterochromatin scaffolding protein, basically, that is able to take nucleic acids and just completely compact and deform them so that you can sequester heterochromatin. And it does it non-enzymatically, and it does it against the persistence length of the nucleic acids themselves. And it's just a really interesting system that I feel like this kind of general interest started all the way back in, my experience as a Beckman scholar.
Can you talk about where you previously studied and the work that sort of led up to where you're at right now?
I ended up in the lab of Dr. Venkat Gopalan working on RNase-P, and I did that for the couple of years that I was a Beckman scholar. And it was really cool because it really got me into both nucleic acids and enzymology, and nucleic acids as more than just an information storage mechanism, but actually as an active biomolecule that is capable of modifying the world around it. That was kind of my first foray into that whole RNA world, and also enzymology. And so I ended up doing my graduate studies in the lab of Enrique de la Cruz, who works on molecular motors. And so enzymes, ATPase enzymes. So I was working on an RNA helicase in his lab that had an unknown function. We were just trying to figure it out from first principles. I ended up coming to UCSF to work with Dr. Geetha Narlikar, and she's a chromatin biophysicist. And so this is like quintessential protein nucleic acid interactions. And so it was kind of this carryover from, things that I was doing as an undergrad to a graduate student to here. And so it's been this nice build.
You said your Beckman experience started out working in Dr. Venkat Gopalan's lab. Specifically in regard to mentorship, because I also worked in his lab. He was a fantastic mentor to me. Can you sort of walk through how his mentorship within this Beckman Scholars Program sort of propelled you forward, and how this relationship has developed over time and impacted your career in the long run?
Coming in, I had never done research before. I didn't really have a sense of what it was. Like, you do labs, in lab class, but they're not really the same thing at all. When you're in class, it's like, okay, assignment 1 is due this day, assignment 2 is, and you have deadlines, right? And when you're doing research and you're really just trying to propel things on your own effort, that there's not really such a rigid timeline as that. Dr. Gopalan was great because he worked with me through all of that. We would have weekly meetings where he would say, like, okay, why don't you bring me your schedule? And here's what, how much time you do have this week and what you plan to do with that time. So you just kind of can start to think things out in your own head. How long does it take me to do things? What can I accomplish in a week? How then can the weeks and months go by? And that sort of thinking he would help me with one-on-one. And then also just really, encouraging me to go to seminars, to go to talks, to discuss science with the lab, to troubleshoot, all of these things that I think, to some degree you get in a lab class, but not so much as when you're doing something that has not really been done before, at least not done in your system. And I was talking with several graduate students in my lab currently, and we were talking about just how much of science is troubleshooting, how much of it is coming up against something that's not working. This sort of experience in a place where you have so much guidance and there's so much patience and there's so much understanding, like this is new. And just having people who are really invested in bringing you through that was just invaluable, because when I hit my graduate studies and when I hit now and things just stop working, there's a part that gets frustrated because things are not working, but there's also a part that knows, oh, we've done this before. This happens in science. And that sort of sense and intuition of science, I think, is just invaluable too, because no matter what you end up doing in research, you will always come up against something like this. The thing that we do by definition is not easy because it hasn't been done before in exactly the way that we're doing it.
I think you brought up a really good point there about I feel like a lot of people in science bring up the importance of grit and resilience. and being able to overcome challenges. So just kind of like a follow-up question with that is, what kind of challenges have you faced and how were you able to overcome them?
That's a really great question. And I feel like people should talk about this more, kind of like you're saying. We don't tend to publish negative results, which is unfortunate because we all have them. In my graduate studies, my first project that I qualified on was a project that I thought was just really fascinating, and it was involving a different RNA helicase that was involved in antiviral signaling. And I was like so invested in this project and so gung-ho, like, oh man, this is so cool. And it has so much interesting biological relevance. And then the day after I qualified, actually the day of my exam, as I came out of the qualifying room and I was like, oh guys, I passed and everything, the postdoc in my graduate lab handed me a paper that had come out a week before that had basically scooped my entire proposal. And so that was a moment of like, okay, all right, starting over. Before you even really get started, we're going to start over. And that is actually one of the best ways that things can happen, right? Because to get scooped right from the beginning is much nicer than to get scooped as you are getting ready to finish a project. One of the things that was just really invaluable to me as a Beckman Scholar, going through my first round of troubleshooting especially, was the fact that everybody around me had been in science longer and everybody around me knew more than I did. As a scientist, part of the job of your mentor is to provide an environment in which you can fail, and you can fail repeatedly, in fact, and it is to be expected, and it is not actually the exception to have things not work.
What kind of factors do you think contribute to the success of a young researcher, and how did the Beckman program help you grow in that way?
I'm incredibly appreciative about Ohio State because I know that they put a huge emphasis on undergraduate research, and I recognize that not everybody does. But even like the Beckman program, I would think is even above and beyond, the support, the value, everything that Ohio State just as an institution gives to undergraduate research. The Beckman Foundation is incredibly generous. They are probably the reason why I decided I could go to graduate school. You're unmistakably already in the world of research coming out of the Beckman program. You've gone to seminars and you've gone to conferences and you've given lab meetings. When you come out, you have so much knowledge already about what graduate school is going to be like and about what the world of research is like. It gives you so much experience, certainty, and it also gives you a base to fall back on. And so Dr. Gopalan is someone who I go back to continuously. You constantly have this person to kind of touch base with, and this whole academic family, in fact, because you grew up in a lab with people, and just having like family like that coming out of undergrad, I think just such a special thing.